welcome to my podcast, Where the Dark Corners Are. Hello. I am Dina, and I am your Dark Travels hostess. And tonight, we have a Serial Killers with Sierra. Yeah. Special episode.
I love that intro every time.
So how are you? It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing all right. I heard you got a new job?
I'm trying.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm waiting on an email.
Oh, okay. Okay. So today we are revisiting not a local, because it's not local to us, but it's in the Northern California region.
Yes.
It's anniversary of a very horrific, and I use that word
Definitely not lightly.
It's, yeah.
And still unsolved.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
Which makes it kind of crazy.
Right. Just a horrific crime.
Yeah.
That happened to an unfortunate family that, like you said, is unsolved and really in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And the anniversary of this horrific event is actually on April 11th.
Yes.
So this is up serial killer Sierra's alley.
It totally is.
So she is driving the car, you know.
Good thing I have a driver's license.
Her serial killing driver's license.
Hey, as long as it's a hearse, it's fine.
So tell us about this. What are we really talking about here?
Okay, so really like the main title of this event, I guess, that occurred. It's called the Cabin 28 Murders. Okay. And it took place in Keddie in Northern California, kind of between pretty much right between Quincy and Greenville. It's like a little resort. I don't believe it's still open as a resort, but most of the buildings are still there.
Okay. So, and again, these places are in Northern California that I think was part of one of the many fires that transpired over this last couple of summers.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. I wonder if it's all still up there then.
Right.
Because I think the fire went right through that area.
And just didn't stop.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, shoot, they saved what?
And I
35
think,
houses in Greenville, and that was it.
Right.
So.
I mean, I don't normally go over. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know on a map where they're located. And the fires were way over there.
Yeah.
But
I'm very familiar with the area. My grandmother grew up there.
Okay.
So it was kind of devastating for her. It was very, anyway.
Right.
Fire.
So let's share.
Yes.
Tell us.
So a little bit of background. In July of 1979, Glenna Suzanne Sue Sharp left Connecticut after separating from her abusive husband, James Sharp. She at first relocated up to Northern California, where her brother Don lived, and rented out a small trailer at the Claremont Trailer Village in Quincy. She stayed there for about a year and then moved into Cabin 28 in Keddie after the Plumas County Sheriff Sylvester Douglas Thomas moved out. So he used to live in that cabin. He moved out. The Sharp family moved in. She lived there with her oldest child, John, age 15, her daughter, Sheila, age 14, her daughter, Tina, age 12, and her two youngest sons, Rick, age 10, and Greg, who was 5.
So she had 5 children?
Yes.
Is that my count correct? Okay.
Yeah, altogether. So we're going to get into the actual event. April 11th of 1981 at around 10:30 or so a.m., Sue, Sheila, and Greg drove from their friend's house, the Meeks family, to go pick up Rick, who was attending baseball tryouts in Ganser Field in Quincy. They ran into John and his friend Dana Wall Wingate, who was 17. They were hitchhiking at the mouth of the canyon from Quincy to Keddie, and so they, ran into him. They're like, oh, hey, it's my kid. Pick him up. And 2 hours later, so around 3:30-ish, John and Dana hitchhiked back to Quincy to go meet with friends. They were last seen in the downtown area together before the event happened. Sheila had plans to stay the night with the Seabolt family, who lived in an adjacent home in Keddie. So Keddie was kind of like little cabins. Most of them were probably 50 feet apart, I'd say. I mean, they were pretty kind of clumped in close because they're in the middle of the woods on the side of a mountain. So you can't get too much space in between. So she left at around 8 p.m., leaving Sue, Rick, and Greg and the younger boy's friend, Justin Smart, at the house. Tina returned because she had been over at the Seabolt's home at 9:30, so about an hour and a half later. At around 7 a.m., April 12th, so the morning after, Sheila returned to cabin 28, and she was the first one to discover the bodies of her family. She found the bodies of Sue, John, and Dana in the living room. Rick, Greg, and Justin, however, were in the back bedroom, but they were unharmed.
We're talking the younger ones.
Yes, the 3 youngest ones were unharmed. So,
and that includes the friend and the 2 youngest of Sue's children.
Yes.
Okay.
The 10-year-old, the 5-year-old, and I believe Justin was 9 or 10. So Sheila rushed back to the Seabolt's house because, of course, you're going to panic. I would too.
I mean,
yeah.
She's what, 14 you said?
Yeah, 14.
I don't even know how she managed to get back there.
She was a brave little girl for sure.
I couldn't even, I don't even think I could do it. I'm not.
No, I think I would just break down and just sit there and cry.
Right. Scream my head off.
Yeah, because I mean, it's, your mom, your brother, and your brother's friend. And they're just dead in the living room.
Murdered.
So Jamie Seabolt, the dad, retrieved 3 of the boys through the bedroom window. He later admitted to having briefly entered the home through the back door to see if anyone was still alive, potentially contaminating the scene in the process. But I don't really blame him,
Well, you have to check to make sure because if their lives are hanging on by a thread.
Yes, for sure. You definitely got to check. So the investigators were called roughly an hour after Sheila first discovered the bodies. Deputy Hank Clement was the first one to arrive. He reported that there was blood everywhere. It was on the walls, the bottom of the victim's shoes, Sue's bare feet, the bedding in Tina's room, so the youngest daughter, on the furniture, the ceiling, the doors, and on the back steps. The blood patterns suggested that the victims had been moved and rearranged from the original positions in which they were murdered. John was closest to the front door. He was face up, his hands were blood-covered and bound with medical tape. Blunt force trauma to the head was caused by hammers, and his throat had been slit.
Wait a minute. You said medical tape?
Yes.
Was Sue a nurse?
No. So
okay. That's kind of a...
Yeah. Granted, anybody can really buy medical tape.
But that's not a common purchase.
No. Well, for some people it could be, but I buy medical tape because I bound my heels because I have plantar fasciitis, and binding them works wonderfully. But, yeah, no. So, I don't know if they just found it in the house. I don't know if the murderers brought it in, but it was there.
Well, I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, bringing things in, which is sometimes what they do.
Yes.
Whose hammers? Whose knives were used? Are you getting to that?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Well, I'm asking it. Okay. Too many questions too soon, Vina.
Down the road, I promise.
Okay.
Dana was found beside John, face down. His head was badly damaged and partially on top of a pillow. His neck had strangulation marks. His ankles were tied with electrical wire and also tied to John's ankles. So they were bound together. Sue was probably the worst. She was partially covered with a blanket. She was on her side near the sofa and naked from the waist down. She had been gagged with a blue bandana and her own underwear. She was stabbed in the chest. Her throat was stabbed horizontally. It went through her larynx and actually nicked her spine. So like half decapitated. The side of her head had the imprint matching the butt of a Daisy 880 Powerline BB rifle.
Now, did the boys own that, or was it something that was brought?
I believe that one the boys owned it.
Okay. And you said that her own underwear, was shoved in her mouth?
Along with a blue bandana.
And she was naked from the waist down. Does that mean she was raped?
There was no signs, but...
Really?
Yeah.
What year was this again?
This was in 81.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a steak knife bent at roughly a 30-degree angle on the floor. A butcher knife and a claw hammer were side by side on a small wooden table near the kitchen entryway.
So the killers just sat them there?
Yes.
Like, this is what we used.
Basically displayed it like, the most arrogant douchebaggery you could do.
Right.
Not take my murder weapon with me. I'm going to just leave it here and make it look all nice. Assholes. Autopsies would later determine that Sue and John had died due to the blunt force trauma, and Dana had actually died of asphyxiation. So.
And neither of the children were assaulted, I'm assuming.
No.
Okay.
None of the 3 young boys. The young boys were completely unharmed, which is kind of crazy, I mean, if you're going to be psychopath enough to murder these
slaughter,
people.
Right.
Yeah. But.
Where's Tina?
That's what I was just getting to.
Okay.
It took them hours to realize that she was missing out of the house.
Oh.
Hours.
So when we say missing, what do we really mean by missing?
That she had been kidnapped.
Oh, okay.
They didn't find, they didn't really find any signs of, a struggle or anything. I mean, other than, obviously, what happened with Sue and the boys.
And they were all in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
Did Tina have her own room?
Yes. And they they found blood in Tina's room.
Okay.
So, and like I said, the blood pattern suggested that they had been murdered somewhere else and then dragged into the living room.
But even
displayed.
Blood was on the ceiling.
Yes.
Was there all the rooms, the living room, the bed? I mean, where was...
I believe it was mostly in the living room for the ceiling splatter, but, I mean, you have to be swinging those hammers.
Pretty hard.
Oh, I can't. Ugh.
This is like an anger thing.
Yes. So the initial investigation was extremely botched. This whole thing was corrupt from the beginning. It's one of the most, dirty cases I think I've read.
Involving law enforcement.
Yes, it is insane.
Why?
I'll get into it a little bit later, but I do know one of the things that was stated, of course, how rumors go, especially in a small town, that one of the main suspects was actually really good friends with Sheriff Thomas. And supposedly Thomas told him to get out of town because he knew that he was the main suspect.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. So during the initial investigation, they didn't find any signs of forced entry. Sheila and the Seabolt family heard no commotion during the night, but a couple living in cabin number 16, which was closer to cabin 28 than they were awakened at about 1:15 a.m. by what sounded like muffled screaming, but they couldn't tell where it was coming from, so they just went back to bed.
At what time?
At about 1:15 in the morning. And I believe Sheila discovered them at 7 in the morning? Yeah, 7. I don't know how you wouldn't. I mean, muffled screaming just in the middle of the woods, randomly. You wouldn't call somebody?
Yeah, I don't know. And this is 81?
Yeah.
That just seems odd to me.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think personally I would at least, even if you don't call the emergency line, at least still call the police station and be like, hey, there's screaming happening out here. I don't know what's happening.
And what's muffled screaming?
Right?
So the young boys didn't even try to leave. I can't even imagine if there's blood on the ceiling, the amount of torture or the word that comes to mind is punishment.
Yeah.
And nobody heard.
Except for the one cabin 16, they said that they heard muffled screaming.
Okay.
But one of the boys did hear something. I'll get into that here in a little bit.
Okay. So
Tina's jacket and her shoes, as well as a toolbox, were missing out of the house. The phone had been taken off of the hook, and the cord had been cut. A lot of potential evidence was collected, but this was pre-DNA testing, so it wasn't helpful. Sheriff Thomas called the Sacramento Department of Justice, who, get this, sent 2 special agents from their organized crime unit, not homicide.
Organized crime?
Yeah.
In the mafia?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Why would you not send homicide for a homicide?
That's a great question.
That's a question I asked myself the entire time I was researching this.
Is the sheriff still alive?
I don't know. I know.
Because, we're talking over 41 years now.
Yeah.
In fact, the 41 anniversary is the 11th.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look that up. I'm not.
Because even if he was in his 40s, it's the potential of him being alive.
Yeah. I think he was 20 or 30 at this point.
Okay.
But
very particular. And why would he request that kind of a unit?
That's what I want to know. Why? I mean, it's, like I said, it's dirty, 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 dirty. So Thomas interviewed Martin Smart, who was Justin's father, one of the young boys that was there. Martin stated that a claw hammer had gone missing from his home. So that's super suspicious. He also provided endless clues that seemed to throw suspicion away from himself.
And why does anybody feel the need to do that?
Unless they're guilty.
Correct.
Yeah.
And wait, that's his own son.
Yes, so Martin Smart is one of the main suspects, along with a friend of his. And if he was the one that did it, it would totally explain why the boys weren't touched. Because he knew his son was in that room.
So, and he's a neighbor?
Yes. So the Smarts lived, I think, a couple cabins down, I believe. Then, of course, it would totally explain that if it was the main suspect dude, why the kids weren't touched.
What would be his motive?
I'll get into that.
Okay.
It's a whole conspiracy theory. It gets nuts later on down the line. Rick and Greg stated that they were unaware of what had happened, so the two young boys, the 10 and the 5-year-old. Justin, however, gave conflicting stories, claimed that he had dreamed details of the murder, but later stated that he had actually witnessed what happened.
And Justin but how old is he?
I believe he was 9 or 10
at
the time. So they actually put Justin under hypnosis to try to see, maybe if they could, subconsciously get the answer from him. He claimed to have awoken to sounds coming from the living room. He walked out there to see Sue and two men, one with a mustache and short hair, the other clean-shaven with long hair, arguing. John and Dana then entered and began arguing along with the other two men. A fight ensued, after which Tina entered the room and was then taken out of the back door by one of the men. So this is what Justin said that he saw under hypnosis. Composite sketches were produced by somebody named Harlan Embry, a man with no artistic skill and no training in forensic sketching.
So some rando.
Yes, and it was never explained why, when the Sheriff's Department had access to the Justice Department's and the FBI's top forensic artists. And
why he declined.
And they used just some random dude. And I've seen the sketches, they totally look like a cartoon. It's,
like a kid's drawing?
Yes.
Okay.
It's, I don't know why. Again, dirty.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine how many crimes are going on in, what's that, Plumas County? And you don't want to put your best foot forward. That tells people something.
Right. And I mean, you had access to the Department of Justice's forensic artists
and the FBI.
And FBI's.
So,
why would you not use that?
It's a tell.
Mm-hmm. Super. Ugh. Press releases stated that both men were in their late 20s to early 30s. One was between 5'11" and 6'2" with dark blonde hair. The other was between 5'6" and 5'10" with black greased hair. And then here's a really fun kicker. Sheriff Thomas resigned from the case 3 months later and took a job at the Sacramento Department of Justice. Yeah. His handling of the case was considered to be disastrous at best and corrupt at worst. And like I said earlier, supposedly he told Martin to leave town because they were friends. I mean, just, this whole thing was just so...
So they were neighbors then, to some degree. But obviously something a little bit more.
Yeah.
You're going to let them get away with the murder of 3 people, and now a child's missing.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit to April 29th, 1981. The FBI backed off of the search. The State Department of Justice, or they stated that the Department of Justice was doing an adequate job and made the FBI's presence unnecessary. Why?
Wouldn't you want everybody?
I mean, so they did a grid research of a 5-mile radius with police canines trying to find Tina. Search was useless. They didn't find anything. So now we're going to skip ahead again. April 22nd, 1984. 3 years and 11 days after the murders. A bottle collector found a cranium of a human skull and part of a mandible at Camp 18 near Feather Falls in Butte County, about 100 miles from Keddie. Shortly after announcing the discovery, before the remains were ID'd, Butte County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous phone call that stated, "I was wondering if they thought of the murder up in Keddie up in Plumas County a couple of years ago, where a 12-year-old girl was never found." The call was recorded, but never followed up on, and the remains were confirmed to be Tina's in June of 1984. So they get this anonymous phone call that's like, hey, these remains were probably this Tina girl.
And they do nothing with it.
Nope. They record it, throw it in the evidence box, and leave it. Yeah.
What else do you have to do that's more fucking important?
Right? And I mean, what the hell? That phone call straight up is like, hey, I'm pretty sure these remains are Tina's.
Exactly.
And
hello?
A week later, they're identified to be Tina's remains. What the fuck?
Right.
Near the remains was a blue nylon jacket, a child's blanket, a pair of Levi Strauss jeans with a missing back pocket, and an empty medical tape dispenser. Remember, John was tied with medical tape.
Correct.
And it's just, they never follow up on it. It just makes me really angry.
It should.
So now we're going to pop into the main suspect. So the main suspect was, as I stated earlier, Mr. Martin Smart and his ex-convict friend, John Bo Budabe. So an ex-convict, that tells you what kind of company he kept.
Now, do either one of these men, not that this necessarily negates anything, have a history of criminal activity?
John does.
And or assault?
Martin doesn't, John does. John was supposedly in the mafia and like a mob in Chicago, and he was a drug runner.
So basically, what you're saying is the Sacramento sent a organized crime unit to investigate a crime potentially committed by an organized crime personnel.
Yeah, but you still think they would send at least one homicide, though.
Well, no, that's my point.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Vina, this shit is dirty. It is one of the dirtiest cases I've ever researched. And, like, I knew it was dirty before, but, like, I didn't know it was this dirty until I did the amount of research that I did.
Right.
And it's just, it blows me away.
It's infuriating what it is.
But I remember sitting there and I was just like, why? What the fuck? Why? Why is this so corrupt and so dirty? What is wrong with people?
Why would you protect anybody over this?
Exactly. So, people stated that Martin Smart hated Johnny Sharp, so the son, with a passion. Unknown why, but just that he hated him. Sheriff Thomas, who was a friend of Martin's, claimed that he personally interviewed Martin and that Martin had taken and passed a polygraph test.
And do we have that evidence?
No. Of course not.
Okay.
So John Bowe, as he's mostly known as, was a known mob enforcer and had criminal ties to Chicago. Crazy. Marilyn Smart, Martin's wife, left Martin the day the murders were discovered.
So she probably knew something.
Yes. Martin left.
Where did she go?
She just left. She got out of town, took off. Martin, however, left for Reno, and Bowe left to Chicago shortly after the murders. So they all got out of town.
But again, what was the motive?
Oh, I'll get to that. It's some crazy bullshit. Marilyn, the wife, stated that she was almost positive that it was Martin and Bowe who had committed the murders. Stated that she had left them at the bar in Quincy the night of the murders, and she was woken around 1 or 2 in the morning to Martin and Bowe burning something on the wooden stove.
Inside her cabin?
Inside of her cabin. Marilyn Smart had actually sent a handwritten letter signed by Martin to the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. The letter stated, "I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want?"
That's pretty damning.
I mean, what?
That's a confession right there.
Yeah. It was not treated as a confession.
Of course not.
Nor was it followed up on. Because why would you?
Ugh.
And then it turns out that Martin had actually seen a therapist at the Reno VA because he was a veteran, and he had confessed to the therapist, "I killed the woman and her daughter, but I didn't have anything to do with the boys." Stated that Tina was killed to prevent her from identifying him. She had witnessed the whole thing, is what he stated.
But that's still, why do you remove her?
Right?
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
You kill everybody you're basically hammering on.
Yeah.
But you take, what was she, 12?
12.
No, you didn't kill her because she was a witness.
No.
You did something else horrible to her.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I would not doubt it in the slightest. The Department of Justice was alerted to the confession in 1981, but had dismissed it as hearsay.
The Department of Justice ignored the therapist?
Yep.
Telling them?
Yep. Said it was hearsay.
The professional?
Yeah. Mandated reporter who had no reason to lie.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Martin Smart died of cancer in Portland, Oregon in June 2000.
I hope he fucking suffered.
Me fucking too. And John Bowe Budabay died in Chicago in 1988 of unknown causes. So what really sucks is, like, we can't, no justice was served if it was those two, which I'm like 90% sure that it was. And no justice was given to that family.
So here again, goes back to why.
Yeah, nobody, So, however, the case was reopened in 2013.
8 years ago? Or, I'm sorry, 9 years ago?
Yes. By a special investigator, Mike Gamberg, and the new Plumas County Sheriff, Haywood, who was 16 at the time of the murders and knew the Sharps personally. A hammer matching the one that Martin said that he had lost was found in a dried-out local pond on March 24th, 2016.
All of a sudden.
Yeah. That's kind of...
Did they think there was more than one weapons used and some of the weapons were missing?
Yes.
Okay.
So the most widely accepted theory of why the murders took place was that there was supposedly a love triangle between Martin, Marilyn, and Sue.
How does that work? He supposedly killed for her.
Yeah.
So what, Sue and Marilyn were involved?
Sue and Martin were involved. And supposedly Marilyn got pissed off you're cheating on me and blah, blah, blah.
Was there actual evidence to prove that? I mean, they don't have cell phones at this point in time to prove, messages back and forth.
Yeah. But like I said, it's the most widely accepted theory. So Martin and Sue were having the affair, and Sue was counseling Marilyn to leave Martin, who Marilyn said was abusive. And, Sue had already left one abusive partner. So, she kind of.
But why would she hook up with the second abusive partner? In my opinion, she left one part of the country, came to the other side to get away.
Yeah.
Why would she get involved again with somebody? But she was not married to him. No. She didn't have any financial.
No, I don't know. So Martin enlisted Beau, who had lived with the Smarts for 10 days before the murders.
How did they know him? Because, again, for people who don't know this, Keddie is literally in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. What the fuck is the mafia person doing in the middle of the fucking trees?
Well, I think he had been caught doing some bullshit in California, went to prison, was released, but didn't go back to Chicago or anything. So he was just here. And I mean, granted, they probably met in like Quincy or whatever.
But in 1981, Quincy, which is not a small town today.
Yes.
And I think some of it burned.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being bigger 40 years ago.
No, probably not, but
I don't understand why John would even be in this. This is literally in the middle of the woods.
I don't know. Maybe he liked to go hunting and fishing.
This is very baffling why this guy is even in my opinion, basically Wood Timbuktu.
Yeah. I mean,
Woods Timbuktu.
Who knows? Okay. I mean, this dude was jacked up in the brain, so who knows what the hell he was thinking coming up here. So Special Investigator Gamberg has been quoted saying that the Department of Justice and Thomas's run sheriff department covered it up is the way that it sounds to me. He criticized the quality of the initial investigation, stating you could take someone just coming out of the academy and they'd have done a better job, which doesn't surprise me.
Sounds pretty obvious.
Yes. And then the newest thing that I could find, and it never stated anything else other than this, was in 2018. DNA has pointed to other suspects who may have had a hand in the murders and are still alive. Gamberg stated, "It is my belief that there were more than 2 people who were involved in the totality of the crime, the disposal of the evidence, and the abduction of the little girl. We're convinced that there are a handful of people that fit those roles who are still alive today."
But they haven't pursued it.
No.
Why?
I don't know. That was the last thing I could find was 2008.
I wonder, and this is something that I've really been tempted to do, and maybe I might do, is the FBI has, if they have information under the Freedom Act, you can request that information.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't be a bad idea.
I mean, if they're acting like, this is a closed case.
Yeah.
And it was 41 years ago, 4 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And your 2 main suspects, in theory, are dead.
Yes.
I mean, they're not dead. We know they're dead. That's not in theory, but in theory, the suspects.
Yes.
Are dead.
Yes.
Period. This is what I don't understand sometimes about law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Why do they hold on to information for so long? Because, like, for example, and this is getting off a little topic, of course, but like the Black Dahlia murders. Mm-hmm. Supposedly they have a whole room full of evidence.
Yeah.
Why haven't you released it? It's been over, I think, 70?
Yeah, something like that.
Years?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should be dead.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
And if they're not dead, they're in some nursing home.
Right.
Being wheeled around.
Yeah. I don't know. And then the last thing I could find about the 3 remaining children, Sheila, Rick, and Greg, they left California to go live with their aunt. However, they went to foster care after they arrived because their aunt had several children and couldn't handle anymore. Sheila has actually given several interviews and continues to work with the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. However, she does not speak to her brothers about it as she wants to protect them. I don't blame her. I mean, they were 10 and 5 when they lost everything. And then the thing that really baffles me was Cabin 28 was demolished in 2004, taking any other remaining potential evidence with it.
Who demolished it?
I couldn't find who did. My guess would be whoever owned the resort at the time.
So getting back to the more recent investigation, the investigator came to the conclusion that more than 2 people were involved.
And
And
not Martin
why aren't
or
they
Bo.
questioning that person?
I mean, they could possibly, but they're just not,
Releasing that information.
Yeah.
This is so sad.
And I mean, and it's been, I mean, I can't even imagine, your family gets taken from you, 40 plus years ago, and there's still nothing to show
No
for
justice.
it. Nothing. Not an ounce of justice. Just it's devastating. And there was actually a little bit of like media influence. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Strangers, like a horror movie, like those 3 guys in the mask come and they chase that family in like the cabin.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, so it's a movie called The Strangers. It's based very, very loosely off of Cabin 28.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen this movie.
Yeah.
I have not seen this movie.
Yeah. 2008. Hey, I was right. But yeah. So there was that one. And then I will say there's a movie called Cabin 28. Never watch it. Never, ever watch that movie. It is like 2 hours of your life.
You'll never get back?
Oh my god, it's so bad, Vina.
Okay.
It is so bad. Like, I watch, like, and there's a documentary called Cabin 28, where, like, they do the interviews, and they interviewed Marilyn, and Sheila gets interviewed in it, too. So the documentary is good. The movie, which is supposed to be, like, entirely based off of the murders, it's awful. It is so bad.
Okay, something to avoid.
Yes.
Well, all right. So this is it. This is the unfortunate Keddie murders of Northern California that had happened on April 11th, 12th-ish.
The night of April 11th, morning of April 12th.
And its sad anniversary is about to happen. So 41 years and still no justice. That's disgusting.
It is very disgusting.
And sad.
Yes.
All right. So that's what we have for you tonight. On to business. Facebook. We have a Facebook page. If you are curious or interested and would like to join, send a request. But in the meantime, if you have another unsolved but probably solved and reality solved murder you'd like for us to delve into, even want Sierra to do the research, send me a request at wherethedarkcornersare@gmail.com. Final thoughts, Sierra.
With this being an unsolved case, I would just like to say if anybody knows anything, come forward, get a hold of the Plumas County Sheriff's Office, let them know what you know if you know something.
Or at least contact the more recent investigator.
Yeah.
Well, he is with the sheriff's.
He's working with the sheriffs. His name is Mike Gamberg.
And, I mean, I don't know why they're withholding the DNA information, but
yeah.
Either way. So until next time, please remember, only the few can find the beauty in the darkness, which is why we hope to meet you where the dark corners are. That was way too loud, so I'm gonna